So, welcome to A Better Start Southend, this lunch and learn session on Wednesday, the 19th of June. I'm Sally Poskett. I'm a trainer consultant with KCA. KCA is a training organisation that's been working into children's services and actually more broadly than that, since 2011. We've been operating as a training organisation. I was one of the founding directors at KCA. I set the company up along with my mum and my brother as an associate training organisation back in 2011. My professional background prior to that was as a probation officer. And I've also previously worked in homelessness, mental health services, and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I'm delighted to be able to be here today, scaffolding this lunch and learn session for A Better Start Southend. And really grateful that those of you that are here, and that those of you that are watching this as a recorded session are finding the time to do that. I hope it will be useful information for you. I have a short PowerPoint presentation just to kind of scaffold us through today's session. And also it will be there as a reference. I'll make sure that colleagues at A Better Start Southend have got access to that, and that can be distributed along with the video if that's useful for people. We're a small group in the live session today, so please do feel free to interject. There'll be points that when I'm working through the PowerPoint presentation, I will close it. I will come off the share just so that I can see people. So anyone that is able to have their camera on, that helps me in my online delivery because I'm able to connect with your lovely smiling faces. But don't feel under pressure. Thanks, Eleanor. Don't feel under pressure to do that. There's a whole myriad of reasons why people can't do it, and hopefully partly that's maybe because some of you are busy eating your lunch, and that's fine. So we've only got an hour together, so I will go ahead and start the share if that's okay. All right, let's have a little go. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. I'll tell you what, this is where me and Beth were testing the presentation earlier just to make sure everything was going to work, and I forgot to go back to the beginning. So here we go. This is a 5 to Thrive Launch and Learn webinar. I've mentioned Beth in there. Beth has very kindly helped set this up. I didn't put Roger's name in there, but I know Roger has been doing a wonderful job kind of managing these sessions and bringing these sessions to you. So Roger, thank you for that. Okay, so what are we doing today? An opportunity for you to find out about A Better Start Southend's 5 to Thrive development plans. Roger introduced the word, said 5 to Thrive as a programme. Hopefully you'll get a sense of what 5 to Thrive is and what the plans are, what we've been commissioned to deliver by the end of this session. So it's a find out session. Within that, there'll be learning because this is a lunch and learn session. So hopefully I will give you enough of the kind of knowledge base around 5 to Thrive and just be able to explain to you this 5 to Thrive model. I know there's colleagues in the room who have already come across it. I know I've met Eleanor at a previous event. Beth's been at a previous event. So there's some knowledge in Southend around this 5 to Thrive model. So for those of you that are already familiar with it, it's reconnecting with that and being able to place that within the context of what we're going to be doing with A Better Start Southend. And for some of you, it will be the kind of top line information about this model and about where it comes from. But the most important bit, I think, for today's session is that you will leave today feeling inspired to share the information you've gleaned from this hour we have together with colleagues, with others in your community, with people you work with, and perhaps also commit then to participating in the learning opportunities that are being made available. As a training organisation, what we've been commissioned to do is bring in training. And so those training opportunities are going to be made available, and hopefully I'll whet your appetite enough today that you'll want to join in some of those learning sessions. So I will say a bit more about that as we move through. So I mentioned the organisation I work for, KCA, that we set KCA up in 2011, and at that point it was a family affair. It was me, my mum and my brother. My mum is a social worker and writer and teacher. We were a fostering family. And we set KCA, we'd been involved in a learning and development around the needs of looked after children for a few years before setting KCA up. And we'd had the privilege of working with a number of associates. And when we set KCA up, it was about recognising that there's a knowledge base here around attachment, trauma and resilience that has some universal relevance and application, and we were increasingly working into education and into early years and into health, across lots of into criminal justice, which was my background. And so with our associates, we focused on what's this kind of core transformational knowledge that can inform the practice of lots and lots of different people, providing lots of different services across the community. And that's what we started doing. And at the heart of that is attachment. And I've just got a very little video here. I'd like to introduce you to my mum. And she, in this video, just helps us connect with our understanding and our knowledge of attachment, and why this might lie at the kind of foundation of this transformative knowledge base that 5 to Thrive is rooted in. So I've not done what I was meant to do, which was clip sound. There we go, doing it now. Sound. Great stuff. So here's Mum.
So attachment starts, well, probably before birth, actually. Our babies are, but our attachment starts from birth. It's there throughout our life. It also never ends, because what the neuroscience teaches us is that all our lives we need to be able to connect to others. And the clue to that is that our brains work best when we're able to regulate stress. Now, our young are not born able to regulate stress, but they get that capacity, they begin to develop that capacity, and crucially, when they're stressed, their stress can be regulated because they can connect to an adult that can regulate stress. So basically, we have a nervous system which operates on stress and stress regulation. All our lives, we're going to need to be stressed in order to do things, in order to meet challenges, in order to every day live. And we're going to need to be able to regulate that stress. Babies can't. And so what they have is they have that physiological connectedness to an adult. Their nervous system matches the nervous system of their connected adult. So when the baby is stressed because they're hungry, because they need changing, because they need a change, they're bored, whatever. But when the baby is stressed, what the baby does is produce an attachment behaviour. They might cry, they might smile, they draw the adult in. And as they do that, the adult's nervous system matches baby's. We've developed a model for helping people to understand that by noticing the physiological and neurological sequence that happens when people connect. And we call that 5 to Thrive. And so that's our model for promoting secure attachment, because what we've discovered is if people can begin to notice connectedness, they do it better. Everything that we notice we can do it better.
Thank you, Mum, for that. And just pause that. So that was a film from, I think that was probably made in 2017, 2018, something like that. And probably for many of you, this understanding of attachment feels familiar. A Better Start Southend has been working with these ideas, picked up on ideas that Harvard, the Centre on the Developing Child, share, is that the innovations in Southend are rooted in this knowledge base. So this is familiar. So why now? Why now, as we're approaching the end of A Better Start, as we're approaching that 10 years, why bring in this learning programme on 5 to Thrive now? How's that going to add at this point when this knowledge base, we know this stuff, okay? We know about attachment. We know about the need for connection for stress regulation. Well, this might be why now. The concept of collective trauma, okay? And what we're finding is that even though 5 to Thrive has been around for a while, even though these ideas of attachment have been around for a while, we're noticing across our communities that we've known what our young children need, and yet we're feeling that there's more disconnection, there's more challenge, there's more overwhelmed families, there's more overwhelmed children, there's more anxiety, there's more diagnoses. What's going on? And so this concept of collective trauma really helps us begin to make sense of some of that. So collective trauma can be thought of as an overwhelming event affecting the whole community. How do we know there's collective trauma going on in our communities? Well, these are the sorts of things we see when collective trauma is around. We see reductions in a shared sense, a sense of shared purpose. We see a reduction in how we are as community making sense of our worlds, or what our purpose is, or what's going on. We see increases in anxiety and depression. We see reductions in a sense of trust. We see increases in antisocial behaviour. We see reductions in social connectedness. We see increases in addictive behaviour. These are the sorts of things we see at a community level in times of collective trauma. So I'm going to come off the share and just chuck these questions out there. What have you noticed? What do you notice in Southend? What have you noticed in yourselves? Is this an idea that resonates with some of your sense of how things are in your communities? What do we notice? Go on, Roger.
I'll kick it off, Sally. I think a good example that resonates with me is the cost of living crisis. So that's put a huge amount of stress on families, especially families that might not have previously needed to engage with support services. And I think there's been a ripple effect across that whole family unit.
Yeah. So cost of living crises contribute to collective trauma. We have all of these things. There's kind of this drip, isn't there, of stressors hitting our communities. So there's pandemic. I'm gonna keep talking about pandemic, even if people say I don't want to think about it anymore. We're past it. We're over it. It's impacted on how our communities are. Okay, climate change is impacting on how our communities are. Cost of living crises, political chaos. These are all things that are having an impact on us as whole communities, and collective trauma is the result of that. What it leaves us with is a generalized sense of exhaustion. It leaves us with a it becomes hard work doing the stuff that used to be joyful, doing the stuff that, you know, we used to get a buzz from, becomes, we kind of are making ourselves do it. And we have to be real about that. We have to be real that that's the context we're working in. But for us, this 5 to Thrive model has taken on new meaning in those times of collective trauma. Anyone else got any thoughts, observations they want to share about what they notice?
I think the thing that's resonated with me, I joined Lifton's Boys Club or in the 66s, and that's just having its building demolished and renewed. And that used to be the National Association of Boys Clubs. It's now the National Association of Boys and Girls. What I've noticed over the years is that probably through social media that the connection between parents and children has grown far and far apart. In my days, when we used to run jumble sales, fates, massive organisation, but as well as having 120 boys at the boys' club, you had about 22 people on the supporters club, all parents of the boys that attended and helped us when we used to do the carnival or go away on summer camps to Wales and places like that. That's all changed. And I know things change. I'm not a problem with that, but it hasn't really changed for the better. I attended a conference with the YMCA and was really, really impressed with the YMCA school, which is up by Pridwell Station, how they work on a person-centred basis and how they work with children individually rather than this collective attitude at schools where you have to wear a uniform, you have to do this, have to do that. I think they only deal with the kids that have been excluded from school, but I'm going to meet them in a couple of weeks' time to see how they've developed. But it just, we've lost it a little bit. That's my
Thank you, Peter. And I think those are really shrewd observations. I think part of what trauma does, and this is what some of our learning programme talks to, and why a 5 to Thrive model and why our work on attachment becomes ever more important, is we see that what you're describing is a fragmentation that happens along generational lines, and so we see issues that need a new kind of responsiveness. And what you're describing at the YMCA there is that we don't just keep doing what we've always done because we have to respond differently. So thank you for those observations, Peter. Eleanor, I'll come to you. I think your hand was up next.
Yeah, so I think when it was COVID, obviously this whole range of impacts on people, but I think kind of something that quite widely impacted people with, families with children, was that children had lots of kind of opportunities to connect, clubs to go to, and things that they were doing in, school plus other things, even just playing at the park. And that all suddenly stopped. Some of the things then folded and didn't continue. The children, it didn't have that momentum anymore. That clubs of children of a certain age, they were then too old for that thing, or volunteers who ran it have got a bit older, or were doing something else by the end. We've noticed that some things, like a few things became monthly, a few things didn't come back to what they were doing before. From the youngest children to teenagers, this has been the same, that this kind of pattern has changed. And also that it's become harder for some people to get out and engage with the thing in person. So while, in my job, run breastfeeding groups, and we do have people coming and engaging, but, quite a lot of people come, but I'm also have in the back of my mind that there are some people who probably are feeling unable to come to a thing in person because partly, when people before all that happened, before the lockdown happened, they might have been in a routine of getting out and about and just about to be not anxious enough to go and do a thing. But then they had that gap and just don't feel able to come in. So, some people will kind of engage more online and things like that. But it's not the same, is it? And it's really hard to and it's, it's the whole family, isn't it? Not just parents, children, other relations who are kind of impacted by this, babies and older children as well. If people are if they were just about managing to get out to a thing before, a community thing, talk to other people, but then, it's just too much to kind of walk into somewhere new.
Thank you, Eleanor. And it is, you know, and what's happened, we can tap into the science behind 5 to Thrive to help us understand what some of those processes are about. Okay, to help us, we can tap into the neuroscience, we can tap into evolutionary biology, we can tap into, and this is where 5 to Thrive is rooted. So yes, ABSS has been going for 10 years. ABSS has produced phenomenal work and supported phenomenal work during that 10 years. There's been amazing innovations. The problem with our research projects and something like A Better Start Southend is stuff keeps happening. So what, you know, the communities you were working into, the needs of people when A Better Start Southend started are different now from how they were then, because these things have kept happening. Okay, and so why now? Why look at 5 to Thrive now? Because we need to come back to this science base and really get our heads around how do we reconnect now with what people's needs are, and are there some useful models that can help us then respond to the real of the needs as they are now. And hopefully that's what this model might help with. This is what this learning might help with, and that's what we're bringing in. Melanie, can I just come to you?
Yes, linking into what Peter and Eleanor have said, I actually work for Family Nurse Partnership, working with teenage parents. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our programme and we've only got about 6 weeks left. But we've been very much looking around at the therapeutic relationship that we have with our clients, but also their understanding of what friendships are. Because for them, they can be people that they've met online that they've never actually ever physically met. It's all messaging and things, and it's helping them understand what relationships can be and what they should be getting out of relationships. And I think that's quite often my concern. I mean, I'm quite a lot older than a lot of you here. I mean, we didn't have social media and all of that when I was at school. It was face to face. We didn't have mobile phones. You made your friends because you were in the same room with them. For them, that's not the case. And some of them will be saying, you know, I can remember one saying, oh yeah, she's my best friend. She's never ever met her, and she doesn't even live in Southend. So they're not going to probably ever physically see each other, but it's just trying to help them understand different relationships and how they can build on those relationships that are not going to be necessarily face to face, but how they can know that they are meaningful relationships. It's not being, in some worst case scenarios, groomed or whatever as well, that they're positive rather than you know, different ways.
Thank you, Melanie, and that's really useful. And I think this is what 5 to Thrive talks to, because what we know with 5 to Thrive, what we know with this knowledge base, is that actually this is the neuroscience behind this, understanding what's going on neurophysiologically in our brains and nervous systems, talks exactly to what Melanie's talking about. You know, us having real life, face-to-face contact with other people is part of what we physiologically need. You know, and we're amazing. We adapt all the time. We're amazing. We have learned very quickly through pandemic that we found ways to try and connect, you know, together in a meeting like this, and we've practiced, haven't we? We've had to sit there. I've had to teach myself as a trainer to go, Peter is a real man in that real room somewhere in Southend. Eleanor is there in her room with that sun coming through her window. Melanie, you know, and have to really get our brain and nervous system to do that. But it takes a toll on us. And so really understanding the neuroscience and understanding how this impacts helps, you know, can help us all to then find the things we need that can cut through and respond to that collective trauma we're all caught in. So thank you for those observations, and I'm glad you said what you said, because it kind of marries with with the rationale for this learning project. So I will go back to my share. I'm conscious I've got half an hour left to whiz you through 5 to Thrive. share some of the neuroscience with you, and have a little bit of space for a bit more chat. So is that okay with everyone if I go back to the presentation? Good stuff. Thanks for the nods. Okay. So collective trauma is going on. Trauma is a normal human process. It's you know, this capacity. If we understand trauma as kind of a capacity to disconnect, okay, disconnect from each other, disconnect inside ourselves. It's part, we disconnect as part of our survival. It's important for our survival to disconnect. And in some of the learning, we go into the neuroscience of that, of what that disconnection is about. Connection is vital. Our attachment, our understanding of attachment is rooted in this understanding of this need for connection. Humans are born to connect and care. Okay. But we're also born, so that picture, let me go back one. Sorry, I'm not helping your video here, or just by fiddling around with my PowerPoint, but go with me. We're born to connect and care. The neuroscience has helped us understand that our neurophysiological development is dependent upon connection. This is literally nervous systems connecting together between human beings. Okay, so we can imagine looking at this picture that sometime prior to this picture being taken, those two people might have been in a slightly different state. We can imagine that little one might have been crying, in a pickle, and that man was able to pick that child up, soothe that child, settle that child. And here we see two people now with settled nervous system states. Okay, that man has been able to use the power of his own internal connectedness, his own internal regulation, to connect with the nervous system of that little one and settle that little one. And babies need that, because babies, when babies are born, they have no capacity to regulate themselves. They have very, very immature brains and nervous systems. They need connection with well-regulated adult caregiving nervous systems. And it's through those connections, and it's through that experience of being able to connect with someone who's in that state of regulation, that we then develop the capacity for self-regulation. Right now, this generation, Eleanor, you were talking about the differences. This generation of children and young people, as a result of pandemic, as a result of the sorts of stressors we've been talking about, are finding themselves in adult world, in a world where the adults are themselves nearly, if not overwhelmed, nearly overwhelmed. Okay. But this connection with other human beings is a vital need of ours. We've evolved this need to connect with other people right from being tiny. It's part of how we develop. So humans are born to connect and care. We are also born to disconnect and survive. Okay, so disconnection is part of our survival. We need to, as prey animals, we need to be able to disconnect our thinking, complicated brains if we're going to survive. So disconnection is a normal part of the human experience, but disconnection is harmful for us. We're not working, when we're in a disconnected state, we're not working with a fully thinking, processing, integrated brain that is able to do all these marvelous human things. Okay, being in a state of good disconnection is a state of survival. But humans are also born to reconnect and recover. Okay, so in times of collective trauma, reconnection and recovering is where it's at. That's our task. Okay, it's our task to proactively go, we're gonna do this because we can, and these are our needs. So 5 to Thrive then, what is this thing? What is this 5 to Thrive model? So 5 to thrive is what happens inside of us when we are able to meet someone else's need for connection. Now, we can only do that when we ourselves are in a resilient state within our own brain and nervous system. Okay? We meet the needs for connection in other people when we ourselves aren't overwhelmed by stress. When we are overwhelmed by stress, we can't do this. But 5 to thrive is what happens inside us when we meet someone's need for connection. None of us can do 5 to thrive all the time, but we will all have experience of doing it some of the time. Let me share with you how it works. So 5 to thrive, if we're going to meet someone else's need for connection, it starts with us responding. Something happens inside our nervous system. It's usually that we get a little bit of stress. We feel a little bit stressed because of something that's happened in someone else. Okay, so we pick up on their cue and clue. If you think about that baby cries. Okay, that's a cue that they need connection from us. And that baby cries, it causes a little bit of stress on us. But because we are in a resilient enough state to meet these needs in someone else, as that little bit of stress happens in us, something else happens and our neural pathways for compassion kick in. We want to do something about it. So we've seen the need. We see that this person needs a human interaction, a connection from us, and we're motivated to do something about it. That's respond. Okay. The next thing that happens inside us, the next thing we do, if we're going to meet this need in someone else, is that we now need to engage them nervous system to nervous system with us. Okay. This patterning for engagement starts when our babies are tiny. And with babies, it involves we pick that baby up. We pick the baby up and now we're nervous system to nervous system. As we go on through life, it might be we connect people through calling their name, by a gentle touch on the arm, but we do something that enables that person to connect with us. And we've now got this nervous system to nervous system connection. If this is going to be like this brain building, need meeting type of connection, the next thing that happens is that we are regulating that little bit of stress we felt. We are relaxing within our nervous system. But now that this other person is connected to us, because we engage them, their nervous system begins to mirror what's happening in our nervous system. So they begin to relax. The stress inside them begins to settle. And then we use our big thinking, processing brain. If we're going to turn this into a brain building meeting of need, okay, we use the big thinking and processing part of our brain to get the thinking processing part of the person we're caring for, get that part of their brain working. And we do this through processing the emotion of what's happened. And we usually do that, it's through our non-verbal communication. It's playful. It's transforming something that was difficult into something that is easy. Okay. So there's a non-verbal transformative process that happens within our nervous system. And it supports that emotional processing in the brain and nervous system of the person we're caring for. And then the very last thing we're doing is we're putting in the words. And we're putting in the words because our brains and nervous systems have evolved to use language. Language is important for us. It's part of how we regulate stress in our own bodies. And so we need words. We need words to make sense of our world. So respond, engage, relax, play, talk. There's a whole lot of stuff we're doing when we're meeting somebody's need for connection. It's always sequential, always happens in this order. It's something that's happening in our brain and nervous system when we're meeting that need, and it can happen in the blink of an eye. These can be really, so what we're focusing in here with 5 to thrive is what's happening inside us in that moment of attuned interaction. And what's happening inside of us in that moment of attuned interaction, when what we're offering is actively brain building in the other person. Okay, right through our lives, we go on making new connections. That's what Kate was talking about in her video. And we do it as these needs get met. So this is 5 to Thrive. Just to illustrate that 5 to Thrive model and illustrate how these connections happen and shape us, I'm going to share with you an imagined life. Okay, so Shannon's story is a story we use in our training, and we pull Shannon's stories from putting together lots of little case examples that practitioners have shared with us over the years. Okay, so in Shannon's story, we start with Shannon's story here at a children's centre. You might recognise this children's centre. Shannon's a resident of Southend. Okay, this is one of your children's centres, and Shannon's going to this children's centre as a young mum. Okay, she might be accessing ABSS services, and she's getting support from that children's centre around her parenting of her 2 young children. She's been through some tricky times, as our Shannon. And there's a very attachment aware, trauma informed worker working at that children's centre. You might know them, Melanie. I don't know who it is. I'm saying Melanie because I can see you at the moment. Can't see the others, but you might know who that worker is. Okay. And in their practice, their route in to helping Shannon think about her parenting is using 5 to Thrive, and is helping Shannon reflect on who in her life has helped her to feel safe and well regulated. Who are the people in her life that have provided her with these 5 to Thrive type interactions through her life? And so what the worker does with Shannon is plots a timeline, plots a story, and encourages Shannon to just think about and focus in on who those people are. So the very first person Shannon calls to mind is her Auntie Kath. Okay, so Shannon's early life, the first few years of her life, mum and dad were struggling. There's a lot of conflict in that home. There's times that Shannon felt unsafe at home because of the conflict in mum and dad's relationship. But when conflict happened, Auntie Kath came round. Mum's older sister was there. Okay, and Auntie Kath would come round and she'd pick that baby up and she'd connect with that baby. And her and Shannon had a special little song that they learn. And whenever Shannon thinks of that song, it helps her feel safe. So Auntie Kath gave Shannon 5 to Thrive. Okay. The next plot on her timeline is at primary school. Again, this is one of your primary schools. So Shannon goes to this primary school. And she remembers Mrs. Watkins, one of the TAs at primary school. And in this little cameo, we can look at Mrs. Watkins. Mrs. Watkins has across the week, she's noticed at break time, Shannon seems to be at the centre of every playtime disturbance. And she clocks this behaviour and she says, do you know what? I'm gonna work one-to-one with Shannon. I'm gonna do something one-to-one with Shannon every day until I can just get this sense of what's going on for her. So she takes Shannon off the next day and they're doing a wall display together, working side by side. And in that connection, in that side-by-side engagement, Mrs. Watkins is doing all of that self-regulation. A conversation emerges. And do you know what Shannon shares in that conversation? Auntie Kath is in hospital getting treatment for cancer. But Mrs. Watkins is a safe person and Mrs. Watkins does 5 to Thrive. We move on to secondary school. Mr. Hargreaves, chemistry teacher, big burly man. Okay. He comes into school one day. He clocks Shannon in the refectory area, hood up, face on. Think they up. We've got trouble today. he goes down and says, Shannon, you got chemistry with me first period. We're doing proper experiments, but I need you to be in an okay space. Have you had any breakfast? No. Come on, let's go and get some breakfast. They go off to kitchens, get some breakfast. In the course of that, Shannon's able to tell Mr. Hargreaves she's had a blazing row with Mum, went round to Dad's, and Dad said she can't stay there because stepmom won't allow it. Mr. Hargreaves helps her feel safe. Next time we meet Shannon, custody sergeant at Southend Police Station. Shannon's been picked up for chucking a brick through at Dad's window. The custody sergeant knows Shannon, met her before. She got picked up previously for shoplifting. Okay. And the custody sergeant offers Shannon 5 to thrive. She keeps that cell door open. She doesn't lock that door. She knows Shannon's not going anywhere. Her clothes have been taken off for forensic. But she remembers that Shannon likes to draw, and she gives Shannon some pen and paper. And Shannon sits down, and in her forensic, those white suits, she sits there. She's written a sign, homeless and hungry, please help. The custody sergeant goes off, gets them both a cup of tea, and they sit down, they have a natter. The custody sergeant is someone Shannon feels safe with. And we go on through Shannon's life. And now this picture's up here, not because Shannon's in hospital, but because Shannon works at that hospital. After she, sometime after she'd been working at doing the work with the practitioner at the Children's Centre, she started an open university degree. She got a degree and she's working at that Southend hospital. And she's using all of her experiences, everything that shaped her, in that role at Southend Hospital. She's both vulnerable and resilient. She brings all of those lived experiences, but the moments of connection, those 5 to thrive moments that help Shannon to feel safe, feel connected, those were brain building connections. And those are part of what makes Shannon the resilient, capable practitioner she is today. These experiences matter. These moments of connection matter. So, 5 to thrive then. We said it, Roger introduced it as a programme we're going to be doing. It's not a programme as such. There's a learning programme that we're going to be bringing in to Southend, but 5 to thrive is a model. It's just a model that helps us to notice these droplets of resilience, they're gold dust, these moments of connection. When we've got this model, we've got a way of thinking about these moments of connection. It helps us to notice those. So what we begin to notice what's happening around. And as Kate said right in the first video, the more we notice ourselves connecting, the more able we are to do it. In these times of collective trauma, when we're all exhausted, we need to notice ourselves connecting, because it brings us energy and it enables us to do it more. 5 to thrive is also an approach. So it's an approach that enables us to be that meter of needs. So the model that helps us think about what's going on with the people we work with the family, and it's approach about how we want to be. So 5 to thrive is about noticing, it's about being. And lastly, 5 to thrive is a framework which is about enabling us to teach others about the science of human connection, the part we all play. This is this knowledge base of human connection, the neuroscience of human connection. It's a knowledge base that we can all have access to. We can all have it to make sense of our worlds, whoever we are. And so what we're providing through this programme with A Better Start right now is resources and images and ways of thinking that support all of you, anyone who will participate in this programme, to be involved in sharing this knowledge base, teaching this out there, linking it to stuff you already do. So I just want to share a brief timeline of 5 to Thrive, just so you have that sense of the background of this. I am going to share these last few slides and make sure we've got time for just a little bit of chit chat at the end. So 5 to Thrive has been around a while now. We first developed 5 to Thrive in 2011, 2012. It came out of a co-production with Hertfordshire County Council as part of their My Baby's Brain initiative. My Baby's Brain is still going strong in Hertfordshire. KCA are still involved in supporting workforce development around the My Baby's Brain initiative, and 5 to Thrive is very actively used within the My Baby's Brain work in Hertfordshire. So that's where it started. In 2014, there's a number of things happened. The research around My Baby's Brain had been completed by Warwick University. My Baby's Brain was cited as an example of best local practice, validated best practice, and on the back of that, we were involved with the Better Start Southend in the initial bid process. So we provided consultancy in, and 5 to Thrive was identified as an important model for a Better Start Southend at that point. So we did that work across 2014, 2015. Also Bernardo, so a national programme, their early intervention with family strategy was rolled out 2014 to 2018, and 5 to Thrive sat at the heart of that. And 5 to Thrive is used by many Bernardo services up and down the country to support their work and lies at the heart of their practice. More recently, even with pandemic, we've continued then to work with other organisations and continue to work with them to evolve and develop our understanding of 5 to Thrive. So one example of that is our programme in Wiltshire. I'm not going to play the video. I'll make sure I send you a link to the video because I'm going to run out of time, I think, and I want to hear from all of you. But this lady on this slide here, Sally Johnson, she's one of our commissioners in Wiltshire and leads on the public health strategy in Wiltshire. So if you're wanting to get more of a sense of how organisations are using 5 to Thrive kind of within their strategy and systemically, Sally's got a few things to say about that, so that's why I included that video. I'll make sure that you get the links to that. So what are we offering then? What's this programme going to look like? So obviously there's this launch webinar. And this has been recorded so that this can be sent out to other people, it can be sent out to colleagues, which will just share this information more broadly. After that, the learning programme will kick off in the autumn. So there's going to be 2 pathways to that learning programme. There's course A or there's course B, and this is a whole day training session. ABSS have funded for up to 150 practitioners across each of those learning pathways to attend that whole day training. There's a whole day face-to-face training, and then you will have access to additional e-learning and a whole load of learning resources that support that. So of course the first pathway is kind of aimed at those working in universal service provision, and the second pathway is more aimed at those who would describe their work as being quite targeted work. The team at A Better Start Southend, if people are unsure about what pathway is the right pathway for them, there'll be more comms going out about that, and conversations can be had in Southend about which course feels the right course to do. There'll be similar content across both courses, but just that slight different focus in how we're helping practitioners to think through the knowledge base. And then alongside that, ABSS have also funded a 5-year licence for 5 to Thrive. So this, there's discussions, I think, happening in Southend at the moment about where that licence is going to sit post the Better Start, but that licence is there, and that licence will then is about giving access to a whole range of resources and really encouraging the workforce to really take 5 to Thrive on and innovate with it. And so we provide a whole range of resources, and there's things in there like publications, there's a whole load of downloadable resources, posters, all kinds of things that practitioners can use and innovate with in their work. So that's the learning offer, and there will be more comms going out about that soon. I'm going to stop the share. That's been a lot of blah from me. Questions, thoughts, comments? Fire away. Melanie.
Just to say, I've actually worked with this before under Bernardo's. I used to work for the Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service in Mid Essex. So we did both lots of training and rolled it out. And for me, although I've already used it, I actually work for FMP at the moment, but our service has been decommissioned and we finish at the end of July. So I've sort of come along today to see how this is going to work in Southend, because unfortunately we won't be here to deliver it, but it's nice to know for us, for our own peace of mind, that this is very similar to what FMP stands for and runs through our programme. So it's nice to feel that there will be others that will be able to continue to support the young people that unfortunately we won't be here to deliver the service to.
Thank you for that, Melanie. And never say never. FMP is an important programme, and I think over the years, kind of there's been numbers of different sort of systemic strategies that we've worked on where FMP have been part and parcel of a strategy that's going on. And I've always kind of quite liked that 5 to Thrive as a learning model, that where whatever role people are using, it can kind of tie it into or link it into what they're doing. And my experience with FMP is the two always sit so nicely.
I think the thing for us at the moment, Sally, is that none of us within the team know what roles we will have from the 1st of August. And so therefore it's difficult to picture. We know that our skills and experiences will transfer, but we don't know where we're going yet. So we don't know where we will be able to use these skills at the moment.
Absolutely. And this uncertainty is part of our collective trauma, isn't it, actually? Because part of the political chaos we find ourselves in is that there is, there's such high change environments around our public service delivery. And somewhere within that, we are still real human beings on the ground. Whatever is happening professionally for us, we're still walking down those streets, we're still meeting, and so some of that is about then how do we hold the anxiety that high change work environment brings us, and then but use our knowledge to almost make like a kind of personal impact on what's going on at a community level. But yeah, it's a tough environment. I think it's hard for people. Yeah. Any other? Thanks for that, Melanie. Any other thoughts or comments? Lizzie.
So is this open to non-ABSS organisations, or is this for ABSS staff?
No, it's open to both, I believe. Beth will be able to say more. So certainly, I think it's going quite broadly in terms of the invitation, and I think it's something about coverage. So health visiting, early years, family hubs, but also people working in third sector organisations. I hope I'm not speaking out of tune, but my understanding is that it's a number of places, because there was a limit to the fund. But that we're wanting to kind of distribute that knowledge broadly across Southend and encourage that innovation. Yeah.
Cool.
Anything else? It's been a real whistle stop kind of this is 5 to Thrive, but I hope it's been enough for people to get a sense of what this is, and be intrigued enough to go, do you know what, it would be really useful to, notwithstanding the uncertainty that Melanie's talking about, but it would be, you know, if there's that opportunity to be together with colleagues, exploring some of this science base in a bit more depth and exploring how we can use some of these models ideas in a bit more depth. I hope it served that purpose. So thank you for your time and the opportunity to come and spend that time with you this lunchtime. Roger, shall I hand back to you?
Yeah, thank you, Sally. That was really interesting, and you definitely got that information across in the hour. We've got you recorded now, saying that it's for third sectors organisation, so I'm going to hold you to that.
I hope I've got that right. Beth stayed quiet, so my understanding is that it's a broad brush learning approach. Yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you for that. Really useful. And I guess just for everyone, as a follow-up, Sally and I will work together to share some information, a recording of the session, and then maybe some sort of resource or additional information. And then we'll work with A Better Start to make sure that when that's all ready in the future, that we get the invites out to you all so you're aware. But thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thanks, everybody. All the best.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.